I'm Robbie Ann Mackin, Chief Development Officer at America, and I'm joining you today from the Hudson Valley of New York on the ancestral lands of the Mohican and Munsee peoples. Our hot topic session today is entitled Local Progress We're Making, with a focus on conservation. Our next speakers have taken their climate concern and applied their professional know-how and have turned it into action. They remind us that we all need to be allies with and support local communities and all citizens. From farmers and landowners to industry and businesses, we are all part of the solution. Melinda Cep oversees natural solutions and working lands at the National Audubon Society, and Doniga Markegard is an author and regenerative rancher at Markegard Family Grass-Fed. They will speak about their work with grasslands and conservation ranching. Dr. John Corbett is an agricultural climatologist and will talk about how agricultural climatology is providing valuable data in real time to allow small-scale producers to adapt to climate change, improving food security and nutrition. And finally, you will hear from Aaron Heskett of the Land Trust Alliance, who will speak on conservatives, conservation, and climate. Welcome, Melinda, Doniga, John, and Aaron.
Great, thank you. And thanks to the American Climate Leadership Summit for the opportunity to join and participate today. We're really excited to talk with you about Audubon's partnership with ranchers to support bird habitat and climate mitigation by conserving grasslands. But before we dive into the conservation ranching program, let's orient ourselves. Grassland conservation, management, and restoration are important parts of realizing the potential of natural climate solutions. And natural solutions are part of our work to address climate change. In 2019, a landmark report found that nearly 3 billion birds had been lost since 1970s, and that grassland birds suffered the most severe population loss of all groups of birds, a 53% decline. Birds like Baird's sparrow, bobolink, and grasshopper sparrow. As grasslands across North America had been lost, grassland birds lost nesting and foraging habitat. Grasslands had been converted over the years to housing, to farmland, and to energy development. In 2019, Audubon's report on North American grasslands found that more than 60% had been converted, and that we continue to lose intact grasslands. When we lose those grasslands, we lose carbon and the other important co-benefits of intact grasslands. Audubon's 2021 Natural Solutions Report found that there's significant overlap between areas that are important to birds and areas where the natural ability of an ecosystem to store carbon is high. In other words, what's good for the birds is good for people. And by maintaining existing grasslands and supporting farmers and ranchers, we can store carbon, protect threatened species, and support resilient landscapes. Our conservation ranching program works in partnership with private landowners like Doniga, who's going to talk with us for a few minutes today. She operates an Audubon-certified bird-friendly ranch in Northern California. Doniga is dedicated to finding ways to improve habitat and community through ranching practices that build soil, sequester carbon, capture and purify water, and enhance habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. My name is Doniga, and my family and I, we ranch and steward coastal grasslands in Northern California on the territories of Ramaytush Ohlone, coastal Miwok, and Kashiapomo. And we are humbled by the diversity and relationships that were once tended and stewarded in a very intentional way by the indigenous peoples of this land. And we hold that historic ideal as our North Star as we're moving towards regeneration of life on these grasslands, of grassland birds, of soil carbon drawdown, and the multiple benefits of working with nature to produce nutrient-dense food for thousands of families. So, in order to understand how this functions, we need to really understand nature. And these are nature-based solutions. And if we can mimic our agriculture systems off of nature, then we can not only produce food that is rich in nutrients, but also helps to regenerate life. So nature moves. Nature is not stagnant. We're always on the move. As a regenerative rancher, I move my animals, similar to that predator-prey relationship that these grasslands evolved with. So as I'm moving the animals, those animals are moving the plants. And then in turn, those plants through photosynthesis are moving that carbon down into the soil where it belongs. And they've studied this with wolves. When the wolves were reintroduced, there's this trophic cascade where the prey species move, and then there's more diversity that comes back, and the songbirds come back. So I actually did learn to ranch from the wolves. My background is in wildlife tracking and as an ecologist, and I studied how these wolves move these large herds of elk in this constant symbiotic dance. So, how does this all work, and how do cattle and ranchers play a role in the regeneration of life? Well, I pulled this sample out. See if you can see it here this morning. And it's this incredible native bunch grass called the purple needlegrass. And the purple needlegrass is an indicator species. It's a native perennial bunch grass. So it grows year round, continually drawing carbon down into the soil and through these roots. And there's so much diversity here. We never plant a seed, and there's over 136 plants on our ranch. So the cattle come along and they eat this grass, and the roots then slough off into the soil, adding carbon. They trample a lot of this dry matter into the soil surface, and that sort of also adds this great carbon right there that sinks down. And through this simple process of photosynthesis, there's all these complex relationships happening in the soil with the mycorrhizal fungi and the microbes and the worms. There's so much that we still have to learn about nature's miracles of carbon drawdown. And what some of the results we're seeing is right here on this ranch in Marin County, where I collected this sample. Scientists are finding a 12% increase in soil organic carbon, and that's massive. Grasslands and rangelands have an incredible potential to store some of that legacy carbon. And we're even finding that grasslands, in particular in California, are a more reliable carbon sink than forests. We've seen the increase of megafires. And when a fire comes through a grassland that is well tended and grazed, then that fire is gentle and it actually can help enhance life. So it's really about rebuilding these relationships back with nature and relationships with our food source and with one another, because all of this diversity of relationship will lead to the health of our bodies and the health of the planet. So what does that mean, that carbon? Well, if just 10% of California's 54 million acres of rangeland were to sequester that much carbon, it would be equivalent to taking 2 million vehicles off the road in 1 year. So how can we as humans take our place as tending the wild? We all, as a human right, should have access to nature and to learning these natural patterns, the carbon cycle, the water cycle, and be connected to all of this life around us. And when we have an understanding of how nature functions, then we can take our part and we can tend to the wild. Because just like the indigenous people before us knew that tending to the wild was directly linked to their survival. The tending of our food source is directly linked to our survival. So it's time for us as humans to take our place and tend to that wild not try to tame it, not try to plant it in rows in neat monocrops. Let's bring back that prairie. Let's bring back that rich carbon stock that once cycled that carbon and cycled all of the waste, because there is no waste in nature. Everything's eats or is eaten. And if we can help to build our food systems in a regenerative way that provides solutions for grassland birds, solutions for the climate crisis that we're in, and solutions for the loss of biodiversity. And the result is healthy food. And we can work with our herds of cattle to really mimic how these grasslands evolved. They evolved with grazing animals. And what did those millions of bison bring? And those passenger pigeons or band-tailed pigeons that used to blacken the sky, what did they leave behind? A lot of poop. So I'm just going to end it on that and say we need more poop, and we need that poop to stay in the loop and to provide that food for these grasslands and for all of this life. There is no natural ecosystem devoid of animals, and there should be no agriculture system devoid of animals. Thank you.